This is the latest installment of my weekly letter from Skara. The US election is continuing unabated, and what the alternative media have talked about, but which the Swedish and American mainstream media barely mentions at all, is the scandals relating to the leaked emails of Hillary Clinton. Trump is a problematic candidate, I'll admit. He's got a loose temper, doesn't seem to have the will to win. He reputedly only went into his candidacy because he wanted to boost his reputation as a reality show contestant leader, and that he can't believe he's got this far and is now busy sabotaging his own presidential campaign. He does not seem to be doing his homework, and I don't know, there might be personal issues, but the point is about the whole Trump-Clinton match-up is not that Trump is the ideal candidate, but that Clinton is obviously such a flawed candidate that many normal people would vote for. I mean, I think they could put up Caligula's horse as a candidate, and people would vote for Trump, Caligula's horse, over Clinton. So loathed is Clinton. I think Trump attracts not only the disenfranchised white working class who resent Chinese economic dominance and mass immigration, but I think he also attracts a couple of Bernie Sanders' supporters who don't want World War III or more military campaigns, which Hillary Clinton as the military candidate is sure to promote. And I think there's a growing suspicion among those people who follow the alternative media that Clinton is a completely corrupt person. There was a documentary called Clinton Cash that came out 2 or 3 months ago. The networks refused to show it, but it's on YouTube, and it's based on the well-known journalist Peter Schweizer's book of that same name, which was revealed as a result of enormous amounts of research into archives in several countries, the activities of the Clinton Foundation. Now, the Clinton Foundation is a charitable foundation run by Bill and Hillary Clinton that takes in hundreds of millions of dollars in the last few years from all sorts of unsavory people, including the governments of Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Now, they're not doing that for charity. I mean, nothing is free. What do the Clintons expect that they have to do in return? The interestingly, it's supposedly a charity, but according to one report, only 5% of the money had been dispersed. So, although it doesn't personally go into their wealth pool, it's as a sort of supplier of charity money, it's obviously not very effective. On top of the money that goes into the Clinton Foundation, you get lots of money that Bill Clinton gets for making speeches. Now, he makes about $1 million a speech, and what's happened in several cases detailed in this book and documentary is that a company has problems with getting the green light from the United States authorities for something. Suddenly, Bill Clinton is asked to make a speech about his life or whatever, and he's paid $1 million or something like that, and sometimes it's up to 5 or 6 speeches. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, suddenly the logjam in the State Department, which presided over by Hillary, gets resolved. And it's quite amazing reading the number of examples which in another country would be called a naked bribe to Bill Clinton, ends up with the legislation going in the briber's direction. So, I mean, to any normal person, this is sheer naked corruption. And what's interesting from a Swedish perspective is that 2 of the companies mentioned in Clinton Cash are Ericsson and Lundin Oil, both of whom never had been interested in Bill Clinton before. I think in the case of Ericsson, they were facing fines from the US authorities, and the State Department was putting enormous pressure on Ericsson's selling of monitoring equipment to the Belarusian government. They called in Bill to do a speech in Stockholm, and a few weeks later the State Department said that they were no longer going to pursue this case against Ericsson. Similarly, Lundin Oil had I can't remember, I think they were talking about oil and minerals extraction in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and they were in the bad books of Clinton, and they called him to make a speech, and he and again Lundin got their way. The interesting thing is how the American mainstream media haven't talked about this material at all. If you compare, I think they spent literally 10 times as much screen time on Trump's sexual shenanigans compared to these economic scandals relating to Clinton. And economic factor is not the only one. Allegedly, she used sort of Democrat agencies as hitmen to create agents provocateurs at Trump rallies. That is, they go into Trump rallies and create violent situations, and Trump gets the blame. There's also allegations of voter fraud, false voter registration, that she says one thing in private to Goldman Sachs executives and industrialists, that she wants open borders and free trade areas, and then in public she says, well, under pressure from Bernie Sanders, no, I don't want a free trade agreement and I don't want open borders. And then she's even said in one of her speeches to Goldman Sachs, you as a politician you have to say one thing in public and another thing in private. I think the worst thing is, of course, that the Americans, mainstream media, blame all this on Russia. So I don't know if the Russian intelligence services hacked the email servers and how much research they planted in the public domain for investigative journalists to pick up. I don't know. The latest is I heard that it was a spy inside the NSA, National Security Agency, who leaked it, not Russian intelligence. But the point is, what the Clinton camp and what the mainstream are doing is constantly putting the blame on the messenger rather than focusing on the message. And of course, then, if it seems that you're an agent of a foreign power, then that dissipates the message and you can be seen as a traitor, as Trump has. And it also creates a sort of fake mandate for even more escalation in this conflict against Russia, which is very worrying.